Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Renegade Teacher coming back at you again here from our starship. I'm really happy to have you on board tonight for another transmission. I've got really quite a mixed up schedule here of things to get covered. To be completely honest with you, today I got to thinking about a lot of the things I've covered over the past few days and reflected on it as I taught, as I attempted to perform my duties as a teacher. And I honestly got really fired up today when I got I'll tell you the story when we get there. But to kick off the night here, I wanted to clarify a couple things. First off, teaching is amazing. Teaching is one of the most challenging professions out there, but man, the good times are so good. Being around young people, some of them obviously are easier to get along with than others, but a lot of times, the ones that are already into it and enjoying themselves and learning to the best of everybody's ability, it's really the ones that you struggle more with that tend to show more of an arc and to be more of a reward when you win them over and when they start to grow right before your eyes. So I didn't want to come off as extremely negative all the time about teaching. There is a lot of good, but that is not the reason that I am a renegade teacher. So I want to get to some of the juice for tonight, and I want to kick it off with just some thoughts on a lot of the unnecessary complexity that comes along with being a school teacher. And I don't want to get too specific with this idea right off the bat. Maybe this could actually be an episode of its own. Excuse me. But teaching is inundated with many things that need, for the love of God, they need to be simplified. There's no reason for the amount of complexity and the amount of, thought that's expected to go into so many things throughout a teacher's day. There are apparently way too many decision makers up the chain of command, because it seems like, anytime someone in a school system has a good idea, that everybody has to, fall in line with it. And at the same time, where that might be good, it might be a democratic way to run a school system. Where is the checks and balances on that for your most under fire, your most pressured employees, the teachers in a school building? I mean, truthfully, most administrators that I've ever met would definitely admit that the backbone of a school is the classroom educators, the people in the trenches with the students the majority of the day. And the insane amount of pressure put on teachers due to unnecessary complexity and these unrealistic expectations that nobody could achieve. And again, I've said this before, if some of these people think they're achieving these things, I think really they need somewhat of a reality check, because documenting that something occurred doesn't necessarily mean that it did. So I'm happy that we we all got off to a good start here, in my opinion. Um, the next topic that I would like to discuss, really it comes with a story, and that is as I was teaching one of my classes today, I got a notification on my phone, and I noticed that it was from a news feed app, and I ignored it. I realized it wasn't a text or an emergency or anything. But once the class dismissed, and it was my planning, I admittedly went and checked that notification just out of curiosity, and it was an article. It was an article that I'm going to share part of with you because it got me pretty fired up. So the article that I'm going to read from here is called "The Education Master's Degree Scam." And it is from the January, February, March 2020 Washington Monthly magazine. Okay, written by Grace. I'm not sure on the last name. Gedye. I'm not sure on that. But interesting article here. Got me thinking. Got me fired up because the title of the article by itself kicks off in my brain a whole series of thoughts that I constantly battle with. This idea that seems to have been embraced by education at large, public education at large, that pursuing and attaining a master's degree as a school teacher, as a classroom educator, okay, we've seemed to have elevated that process, that end goal. We've inflated it way out of proportion. Way out of proportion. We've gotten the cart so far, so incredibly far ahead of the horse here. We've got our proverbial heads up our asses. Classroom education in the trenches should not require a master's degree. You'll never convince me that it should. I'm not going to read this whole article to you. I welcome you to do so on your own. But I will say, it does have a personal story in it that I'm going to not discuss any of, even though it is interesting. But I do want to read a few excerpts, like this part where the author wrote, "Right now, one of the most common ways that school districts attempt to increase teacher quality is through master's degrees." Okay, so we're increasing teacher quality through master's degrees. Some states like New York, Maryland, and Connecticut require that teachers get master's degrees in order to keep teaching. I'll be damned. Really? This is a thing? Far more states encourage teachers to get them by trying to get pay raises. Ooh, there's the crux of the whole thing, right? Here's a newsflash. Teachers are not underpaid. Not all of them. The profession of teaching is what's underpaid. If the profession paid the way that it should, we would have far more competent teachers. Why? Because there would be far more competition for the jobs. You ever heard of teacher attrition? You realize that a very high percentage of teachers, new teachers, quit the profession within the first few years, especially high school teachers. If that's not a canary in the coal mine, I don't know what is. Requiring teachers to get master's degrees in order to keep teaching. Teachers should require the person that made that decision. Teachers should require the person that made that decision to go back to high school again. They should be stripped of all of their credentials for making that decision. Just because it pisses me off that much. Here's another excerpt. Some teachers get master's degrees because they want to. Okay, but many do it because their districts require them to, or because they aren't being paid much, and it's a way to get a raise. Some teachers bluntly told me, the author says, their degrees were a waste of time, a surprising admission, giving strong human impulse to attribute value to whatever you've already spent a lot of money on. Well, let's be honest. If we're getting a master's degree as a teacher, we're not getting that because we don't want to raise, right? We would all like to be paid more. So I don't think it's a surprising admission here, to be completely honest, because these people, the people getting master's degrees as teachers, and I'm sure there's exceptions to everything, but they're not doing it to necessarily be better teachers. They're doing it for maybe a combination of reasons, I guess. But my point is, this is not a surprising admission, because in the end, yes, they're spending a lot of money on it, but the value isn't really about the increased teaching quality. It's about the ability to regain the money that we spent on it, and then some. Okay. Here's another part. It says the problem the problem is that education master's programs generally don't produce better teachers. While programs vary greatly, and some stand above the rest, the teachers I interviewed told me that they had spent too much time on theory, not enough time on practical teaching skills. Professors were too far removed from the classroom and using out-of-date pedagogy. So many programs simply weren't rigorous. Love that word. Decades of research back up their critiques. I mean, we can go on here. There's juice in this article. This author is right. Because I can tell you this. The problems facing education, the problems facing real teachers in the trenches every day, they can't be solved with master's degrees. And let's be real, we're not trying to with master's degrees. We're trying to fix a bigger problem with the wrong solution here. We're trying to fix teacher pay the wrong way. Again, making it the teacher's problem to fix their pay scale, like everything else is made the teacher's problem. The author even says, what the system does not do above everything else is actually improve teacher quality. It makes budgeting more predictable for school districts. It suits the needs of teachers' unions who want to increase benefits that are equally accessible to all their members. Again, this is talking about using master's degrees as a way to get a raise. Okay? This is what this is. This is why people do it. Don't tell me that spending 4 years to get a bachelor's degree shouldn't be enough to be a damn good teacher. Where's the science? Where's the science to back up these master's degrees actually increasing student performance? It ain't out there. It is not out there. If it's out there, it's cherry-picked fake science. Here's some more. Subsequent studies have backed up the research, showing that teachers with master's degrees aren't any better, on average, at educating students. I'm done. This is ridiculous. I'd like to thank you for being with me on the journey throughout the stars in search of some rational interpretation of the universe. If you're enjoying the content I'm producing for you, I would greatly appreciate if you could like the video and consider subscribing. Being a Renegade Teacher is one of the most exciting things I've ever started, and I'm glad that you're along for the ride with me. This is going to be good. Okay, we're going to find solutions. Perhaps they won't all come easily, but I'm willing to fight. I'm willing to stand up and try to identify problems. I'm willing to stand up and try to help people solve problems. But the thing that gets me most irritated of anything else is people who act like everything is okay. These people that walk around and pretend that there are not glaring problems all around them. Okay? Maybe they don't realize they're there, but I refuse to believe that. One thing's for sure, master's degrees, PhDs, whatever, they're not going to make better educators. They're not going to make better administrators. The things that do that, the things that actually matter, are character traits. They're character traits. Therefore, a merit-based evaluation system in education is a must. If we're going to talk about actual solutions, we're going to have to start talking about merit pay, merit-based teacher pay. Here, I've got a story here. Here's how you know. Here's how you know for sure, 100%. That, here's how you know 100% that a master's degree or a PhD will not solve anything. Okay? One of my classes, not long ago, caught some students cheating on a test. Okay? Now, I have to explain to you how I make my assessments. I've done it a couple different ways over the past couple years, and there's mainly two formats that I'll do. The first of those is when I'll make two or more versions of a test that have the exact same questions, but all mixed up so that they're in different places all over all of the versions, so that the answers are the same to all the questions. They're just a nightmare. It's a nightmare for students to try to copy off of each other. It takes that temptation. It takes that temptation away, and hopefully, in an ideal situation, students will be bright enough to not try to cheat, given that format. Well, I took it one step farther recently, and I decided to try another method which was giving the same assessment, the same order of the questions, but changing numerical values or changing elements of the questions that would make the answer be different, things like that. So I more subtly changed the versions of the test. So at first glance, they do look like the same test, but if you were to copy from another student, and you had a different version, you would end up with answers on your test that you could not have possibly come up with by looking at your own paper, because those values, those ideas, they were specific to the other person whom you copied from their test. So I could instantly catch cheaters very easy. Now, call me evil. I didn't do it to tempt students anymore. Honestly, I did it because I was tired of grading the test in different orders. But as an unintended consequence, I caught about 6 or 7 students who tried to copy. And I asked an administrator what course to take here with the situation, given the number of students involved, right? I mean, if it's one student, I got it. But this was like 6 kids. It could have been as many as 8. But I explained the situation to the administrator, and I didn't maybe use quite as much detail in the description as I did now, but I certainly explained in no uncertain terms that I was very clear explaining the fact that if a student were to try to copy from their neighbor, that they would have answers that they should not be able to have on their test, and they would not only be wrong, but they shouldn't even be an option, right? They couldn't even have come up with them if they weren't looking at someone else's test. And the administrator in question here, who is extremely, credentials are very high. This is someone who spent over a decade, of their life in higher education, studying these theoretical constructs and things. And as someone who is honestly a pretty smart person, and at the same time, I find myself face to face with this very, very educated person, and having described the situation as I just told you, he looked at me in the face and said, well, if these kids can't copy, if they can't look at another student's test and copy, and not even pass by doing that, then what hope is there? And my brain melted. I mean, come on. He completely missed the point there. This is how you know that you're not going to solve any problems with education that are real by educating the teachers more, by having them attend master's degree programs or anything like that. You're not going to fix it top down. You're not going to fix any problems top down. It's going to have to come from the bottom up. Okay? Because this person that I'm talking about, this administrator, again, my brain was a puddle on the floor. I immediately abandoned ship. I had to jump. I had to bail. I had to hit the ejection button and figure out where the hell I was going to go to decompress about how ridiculously stupid this conversation was. Right? I mean, I was wasting my time even bringing it up. Think of the things I could have accomplished in those 10 minutes. multiple versions of exams, man. Come on. It's not that complicated. Not that complicated. Tell you what, folks, fundamental skills will never be able to be achieved, will never be able to be learned from smart devices. Many of the things we teach our kids are required in order to be able to appropriately think, to actually be able to process information and then store it long term and make connections. If we don't have fundamental skills without the distractions from these smart devices, I'm scared it's all going to be over. I honestly am. I'm glad you joined me tonight. Again, if you enjoy the content, like and subscribe. I am on a mission to help save teachers, to help save education, to help save the universe. I've actually moved to a different portion of the starship. I'm actually transmitting from the observation deck now, so it's a lot more roomy here. I'm a lot more comfortable. Hopefully that comes across in tonight's rants. Looks like it's time to check my blood pressure and check out. I'll be back soon, don't worry. We're in this for the long haul, folks. I'm in it for the long haul. Show your support. Share this with somebody. Renegade Teacher out.